Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. And I've had a chance to interview a number of incredible bass players on this program, but what an honor it is to bring in a guy who really used himself as a vessel or a conduit for information coming through him from the heavens. I'm sure there were times when he would get off the stage and people would say, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" And he said, I have no idea. You have to sort of, when you start to create really spiritual music, you have to apply the Socratic method of you have to know what you don't know. And as a result, so many of the iconic bass lines that my guest produced over time on records with the Blackbyrds have been sampled continuously by hip-hop artists and rap artists, and really just a decorated musician about ready to go on the 50th anniversary Blackbyrds tour. Joe Hall, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you very much, Jake. Appreciate it.
It's good to hear you, brother. Can you did you start off by playing the upright bass?
Well, the first thing I started with was, my mom made me take piano lessons. And I kind of hated them. But, I remember Klaus Vormann, the bass player that played a lot of George Harrison records. The piano teacher was so furious because he wouldn't look at the sheet music, and she actually threw a dog collar on him. It was like, but you're not the first cat to have dreaded these. Go ahead. What was such a drag about it? Well, it was just I guess it was the form in which the particular teacher took to make the lessons. I don't know. I think that's improved so much over the years that it instead of going through a set program that they've developed over their time, that now I think teachers are more inclined to lean toward more of the individual than the formula. So,
I hope so. But I mean, you dropped that like a bad habit, though.
Yeah. I went a few times, and just long enough that my mother said, how's it going? I said, I don't like it. It's not really, it's not fun or something. So I ended that, and then I think the next thing I got was probably, I got my electric bass from a store around here. Of course, it was like a secondhand bass, which was cool with me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Dude, this is so no bass fiddle for you, just always the electric.
No, I got the bass fiddle a little bit later.
We'll get into that. So you get the used electric. Continue.
You get the used electric and a little amp, and gosh, I wish I still had it just so I could mount it on the wall. I don't know where the heck it is, but I got the little amp, and I just started copying what I heard from records and the James Brown stuff and my dad was into like big band stuff, so I heard a lot of that. And my mom was a classical singer, so I heard a lot of symphonic music and vocal arias and all the kind of classical stuff. But then when I got my upright, that's when I started listening to Ron Carter.
Oh yeah, my dear friend, I love the man so much, dude. It's just unreal.
Oh man, he's definitely a giant, and through listening to him, I guess at the time it was also mostly through Wes Montgomery albums from the Creed Taylor time.
Interesting. Wait, I'm trying to think about who was on bass on those. It wasn't Ron C, was it?
Yeah, it was.
It was Ron C. I got to go back. Like Tequila, those kind of, or is that Verve? I'm trying the CT.
No, the straight up jazz. This is more like the what was that record company? Oh, the A&M period.
Absolutely, exact. The West. I dig, man. Continue. Yeah. So that was. So you were getting, and that was interesting time. What were you picking up on at that time? Because that was like, it was definitely not bebop.
Right. It wasn't bebop.
No, and it was not really post. I don't know. How would you describe that kind
It
of?
was more. It was more like a commercial jazz.
You nailed it. You just nailed it, dude.
Yeah.
They
it
were
wasn't
they were
really
covering pop tunes, trying to make them jazzy, maybe get a hit on the radio, that kind of thing.
exactly. And then when I went to was listening to that, then I went back to Wes's earlier more jazz stuff. You know, when he was playing with what's the big band? Oh man, I can't think of the guy's name right now. Famous big band leader.
Why?
And,
But really, I mean, I always knew him from playing with his brothers. I didn't know he was with a big band leader, though.
Yeah, he cut an album with. I can see his face.
let me look that up. Don't worry, it'll come back to you.
Yeah. And that turned me on to a totally different side of him, and also the more real jazz side of his life, and also of music in general. And then from seeing that, I said, "Holy mackerel, what is this?" I'm trying to think of the tunes he was playing. I got 1,000 albums around here somewhere, but I'd have to look it up. And from that, and let's see, because my dad was listening to big band stuff, so I got really interested in the stuff that was being done with Count Basie's band.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you about, like in terms of the bass player and the kind of notes that he was playing. How were they different between the commercial jazz of the A&M period versus when you went back to the more burning bebop Wes? What was the bass player doing that was, if anything, different?
Well, it was a lot. Like I said, it was a lot more commercial. It really wasn't, because it wasn't anywhere near what Ron was doing with Miles and any of that stuff. Because that was.
Oh, dude, this is it. Oliver Nelson.
Yeah.
Oliver Nelson.
Yeah.
Oliver going out of my head. Yeah, I dig.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend that was a good friend who grew up with guitars, Orville Saunders, and he was a big studier of the big band stuff. Was the way he came up, and so we started listening to that. We started playing together. I guess all three of us started playing together, and let's see, Orville and I started playing together in the 8th grade. And we met Keith in the 10th grade.
Wow.
When we were trying to cover and do what the heck is that? A Sly and the Family Stone.
Dance to the music or something, or something.
No, it was.
It's all right. It's still so hip. Yeah.
So we were working on that, and we were trying to find a drummer that could just play. We couldn't find a drummer that could play a press roll.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, Orville was studying theory with a teacher that also knew Keith's father.
Legendary cat, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So she recommended Keith, and we got him in there, and he was the one.
He got the press roll going.
Oh yeah, the press roll. He had all that stuff.
This is like, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you brought up Orville and his big band, and you brought up Basie at the time. You go back to those Basie bands with Sonny Payne. They had a 4-piece rhythm section. Freddie Green played guitar, and when you. Not so much on the albums, but in the live Blackbyrds, what's so ridiculous is the ostinato playing that you guys are doing. You'll hold that for minutes at a time, which is really hard. And I just wonder, is that like, how did you guys learn? How did you learn to play that sort of repetitive, deep groove ostinato bass line in like essentially an electric jazz setting? Because you go back and listen to Buster Williams with M1 Dishi with Herbie, he was doing that, but there was like really you guys had that. I guess here's the point. Did that ostinato groove help come from some of that big band music?
It came from the big band music, and it also came from the pop music at the time, like James Brown.
Totally.
He was an ostinato king.
The ostinato king. I've never heard him referred to as that. I love that, dude.
And so that turned me on to that edge of it. And when it came to the Blackbyrds, we of course we had been playing together. Well, we all went to different colleges at the time when we left high school. So then everybody, and I transferred to Howard from the University of Maryland. And Kevin was already there. Orville was already there. And at the time when I first started going out with the Blackbyrds, Donald Byrd, well, it really wasn't the Blackbyrds then. It was just the Donald Byrd Septet. He would rotate students going out on the road. And we were playing, at that time, Joe Chambers was the drummer.
Absolutely.
And that was a great lesson because, he was a monster cat.
Dude, wait, hold on for a second. I mean, this is so Keith. In terms of he wanted to have a pro drummer. He didn't want a Howard University drummer. I'm just curious why Keith wasn't on.
I don't think there was anybody that he thought could do it. That was a drummer at school.
I dig, man, dude. Joe Chambers. I interviewed him twice. Monster player, dude.
Yeah. Plus, he plays piano like walking through water, so that's no big deal for him.
Dude, it sounds like, there's some Bobby Hutcherson albums that he's on. It sounds like he has 8 arms, dude. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. So that was a great learning experience, and so unfortunately he had intimidated the previous bass player for some reason. Oh, I know what happened. He got mad at the bass player because the bass player mistakenly played through his fours. Like there'd be a break. The drum would play a solo within the tune for like 4 bars, and then the band would come back in. And the young bass player at the time forgot to stop. And he was really not appreciative of that.
Dude, I would not want to get on Chambers' bad side. Although I will say, he's really one of the unsung cats. He's also a very big historian of the music, but at the same time, he taught Keith how to sit on the drum chair. It changed Keith's whole philosophy,
Yeah. See, guys like that know that stuff.
I know, man. It's all
us coming up. We don't even think of that stuff until somebody, really shows you. They say, "Come here, man. What are you doing?"
Well, I'll ask you a question. This is talking to Joe Hall here. Such an honor to have him on the program. Was there? Howard University, Roberta Flack, Andrew White. When they went there was no jazz program.
No.
Eddie Henderson was. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but Eddie was practicing bebop. Or he was playing Killer Joe in the practice room, and the security guard said, "If I ever hear you playing that certain music anywhere, I'll shoot you." They
were hardcore.
What about University of Maryland? Was there any jazz program? Was it also was that a dirty word?
That at the time I was there, that was really not. I think they had a jazz band, but I never knew.
It was pretty square, I guess.
I don't know if they were hiding off campus or something. I don't know.
So even, you're talking like it was not just Howard, even though Howard was a black school and they didn't even want to recognize jazz. In general, there was just
not for the longest time. Yeah,
it was just basically Berkeley and North Texas had jazz programs. Is that basically right?
Yeah, and probably some other smaller schools that had a jazz cat in there. In the music department. Maybe.
Totally.
But generally, no, because my mother went to Howard in the 30s.
Oh, man.
She was a classical vocalist, and she went to Howard in the 30s. And jazz was like, you'd be kicked out of school.
I know, man. It's so that just leaves me stunned. I guess it came from the blues, which was, were you going back in time? Were you? Where your mom was a classical singer, your dad dug big band music, but there were plenty of cats that I've interviewed that they weren't allowed to play blues in the house. It was I just wonder if you ever had an experience early on with Pentecostal or a sanctified church tent kind of thing. I mean, to me, like that's where it's at, man. I mean, I'm talking the holy rollers and stuff. Did you have a chance to experience that? Because that's what people were so petrified about, is that people were actually going to get in touch with the real spirit.
Right, exactly. Because the funny thing is, Orville and I worked with a band leader that he came from the church, and that's the kind of feel he wanted in his band.
I love it. I freaking love it.
And that's when that was the first band, larger band organization I played with, and that was another eye opener at the time. Working that kind of larger ensemble, you were really more part. The rhythm section had its thing, but we didn't really get to stand out much, except when he wanted us to play something that was just relegated to the rhythm section. And he was a saxophonist. What was his name? I'm terrible with names.
No, we got to get this. This is an important cat. You're telling me he wanted that Pentecostal groove in the music?
Yeah, he wanted that in the band music.
Oh, I love this.
And more of a blues, a blues funk thing for the rhythm section.
That is so hip. That's so progressive for that time too. I mean, I mean, it was not up and down. It wasn't square. He didn't want anything. He didn't want it up and down. He wanted it greasy.
Yeah. That was in high school stuff.
Oh my! I cannot. That's insane. So you were playing bass fiddle then, or were you playing electric?
No, that was an electric bass.
Oh
band.
My gosh! I got to hear tapes of that stuff, man.
I wish I had them. I swear that would be amazing.
You feel like that's no matter what. I mean, that foundation propelled. I mean, I've just never heard a band. I mean, there were obviously at that time, I mean, some of Donald's solo albums, when I'm talking like early 73, when you guys first sort of commenced.
Right.
You had Return to Forever, Weather Report, Mahavishnu Orchestra. That wasn't, that was whatever, fusion music, and it was kind of all over the place. Yours was like it was, it's hypnotic, man. I mean, it's just like, it is like, and I'm not even talking about the studio stuff, which was, you guys were relegated to making 3.5-minute tunes, but when you would go out, and it wasn't like you were that rhythm section, that it was just this repetitive, hypnotic groove, and it wasn't ever boring, and I feel like that all started at that time in that high school band.
Yeah, and let's see, that was the mainstay of that, because when after the Joe Chambers period, I remember asking Kevin, I said, do you have because Keith was playing, he was at the Bradley University up in Illinois.
Oh, that's right. He bounced out. That's right. He went to Bradley. He totally didn't take the advice and went to Bradley. Yeah.
He went to Bradley. I guess he just wanted to get out of town.
I dig. Yeah.
But he went to Bradley, and when the Joe Chambers period ended, I thought of a crazy question. I asked Kevin, you have a number for Keith? You think he'd be interested? he said, I'll give him a call and see what he's. And next thing I know, boom, he was there. I said, cool.
Oh, that is so awesome.
And it's been that way ever since.
You can you talk a little bit about in your own, when the Blackbyrds were off the road, so to speak? I mean, even in the early mid 70s, I mean, were you playing? I know that Keith had a chance to, his dad was obviously not a professional musician, but he knew all the heavy cats. He recorded with heavy cats, and and Keith wound up playing with Albert Daly or Gary Bartz, all these elders. Did you have a chance to, outside of Chambers with the Blackbyrds, would you pick up gigs in and around the Baltimore? DC? Can you talk about who some of the because I just feel like ultimately over time you just develop more of your craft when you play with people that are better than you or have been on this planet longer than you. Who were some of the cats you played with?
Well, I got to play with Gary Bartz, and let's see. One time we were off of the. We were traveling to New York, and Bird and I got there early, So we were at a rehearsal hall, just going over stuff, just him and me. And then, let's see, who walked in? It was that famous saxophone player. He's like 80 now.
It was like Houston Person. He's still with us? He's still alive?
Yeah, he's still with us.
Holy.
He's got all white hair now.
Oh, is it Sonny? Sonny Rollins?
Sonny Rollins.
Sonny Rollins walked in the building. Oh, my.
And I was able to play with him and Bird at the same time.
No way, dude.
Before the other guys even got there.
Wait a minute. It was a drummerless trio?
A drummerless trio.
Dude, you have to be. That's like shades of Bob Cranshaw with Sonny and Candido, but at least they had a conga player. You had no drums, dude.
Nope, it was just the two horns and me, and that was hey, you can't make that stuff up.
Well, Joe, it's so important. Just for younger cats who are going to listen to this long after we've left this planet. I mean, I wonder if you could. Bird specifically, because obviously you just spent so many hours with him, traveling, playing, but also like Sonny, like what was the essence of those masters? Gary Bartz is a master, but he's a little bit younger.
Right.
Like what was the essence? I mean, I remember somebody just talking about Jim Hall or Sonny Rollins, and like their concept of practicing is playing what they don't know. I mean, they sound amazing. They're improvising. They're all over the place. Most younger cats today, they're just going over the same rudiments that they already know. And that's just one example of saying, don't stop. I remember Miles would say, stop playing what you know. But I just wonder, like, what if you were going to give some salient advice or what was the essence of the elders? Sonny's still here, but what was some of that stuff that still stays with you today that is almost unquantifiable?
It's the same thing, except I remember when Sonny practiced on the Brooklyn Bridge or something at night.
Absolutely, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So he was out there for hours. And then somebody told me the thing with Train was he practiced more than anybody.
He did. He even after a set at the Apollo, he'd have his horn in his mouth on the side of just blowing away.
Yeah, I remember one time. I remember also somebody told me that Miles told him, because he would play, and Miles told him, well, sometimes just take the damn horn out. Take the horn out of your damn mouth.
Yeah, just stop playing, dude. It's there's space. There's music. Space is music.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that kind of struck me as you just gotta practice what you. Yeah, like you said, what you don't know. Sometimes what I do is I turn on the television and maybe mostly movies, but sometimes the hardest ones are cartoons.
Absolutely, the hardest. Go ahead. So you go ahead.
And I would listen. I would plug in and just try to follow their chord changes and solo through.
That is so badass, dude. I just remember. I just know that the great bass player. I'm not sure if you ever crossed paths from Stuff, Gordon Edwards. He and Emil Richards, the late great percussionist, they both said, and those guys were studio cats through and through. The hardest music to play was cartoon music.
Oh yeah, because they'll change keys on you, they'll change modes on you, they'll do anything at the drop of a hat. And the same thing with movie scores, especially during like not the main theme at the end and the beginning, but the stuff that carries through the middle of it that shows and sets up different moods.
Absolutely, dude. All the different little grooves and little, they're trying to, create some sort of ambiance of the scene. So that's a fascinating, and I mean, Bird, like looking back on Bird, I remember Keith telling me like, after gigs, like, there'd be people waiting for you guys, ready to party, hang out, and there's Bird like in the dressing room. You guys could have had the most amazing show in the world, and he's lecturing you guys on everything that didn't go right, or like that to me. He was a taskmaster, but yet he was so beyond genius that I guess, even though you guys must have been rolling your eyes, the respect and love was there because he was just so beyond.
Oh yeah, he was well beyond. He was in the genius realm, and he would, like I said, after a gig, people waiting out there, and he'd call a band meeting, and he would go over. He's like, what the hell are you playing? We thought we were doing good.
That's right. You probably were doing all right. Yeah.
But he just demanded, from where he was to where we were, is several lifetimes worth of experience and knowledge. So I was, we were pretty much cool. We were pretty much fascinated. By the time we got done, we didn't care if anybody was out there waiting or not. We had to go back and think about what he said and start thinking about, practicing what he was talking about, and just you better get better, pal.
Like especially early on, when Donald was touring with you guys, did you? I'm just curious about like his concept of the downbeat or the one. I remember that like James Jamerson again. Jamerson was a upright jazz player. He could play. And but in the studio, people would say, "Well, where's the one? Where's the one?" And he would say, "Any note can be the one." And because it all comes back around again. And I just wonder collectively with Donald, did he? I mean, you had those tunes kind of ingrained in you, but did you ever play the same song the same way once, or was that the first time you kind of got lost in the music collectively as a group? Did you have that experience before? Because I don't think there's anything more cathartic in any style of music to leave the head of the tune, collectively get lost, but then because of trust and time and feel, you all come back in on the same time. And I just wonder if that was something that was that a new experience for you with the Blackbyrds, or had that happened maybe, in your earlier years?
I guess I first experienced it in the earlier years, but I didn't know what it was.
Exactly.
It was just that, you'd get into the music, you'd be playing, knowing that certain things are coming up, but you would still get into the groove and not really think about that. And then there would be something that would just bring you back, knowing where everybody was. It just worked out that way sometimes, especially early on. But things were forms were more constructive, or more constructed, more we got to Bird, at school. And even with some things that were odd metered or had different kind of phrasing in it, different times going on, different meters. I don't know. It wasn't a puzzle to me. It just felt, you throw in a 5/4 and a 7 and a 7/8, and that kind of 3 and the 3/8, but it more or less felt more like a flow than having to think about it.
That's exactly right. It's playing through the time, so to speak.
Yeah.
But to do that well, and you guys made it look easy, but it's not easy, man.
Yeah, I guess so. But, it's just
no, it really isn't easy. It can turn into a complete mess very quickly.
Yeah, that could happen for sure. But I was lucky enough to be around Cassett. It wasn't a problem.
Let me ask you. So I have this show from the Jazz Workshop, and David Williams is on bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know about so Kevin called Keith. Keith came back for the gig. Is that when you started to hit the road, or you were with Chambers? I mean, I'm trying to figure out why David was playing at that time.
Well, at that time, let's see, because I was in the band from the pre-Blackbyrds.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was when it was just the Bird Septet. It was Kevin, myself, Barney Perry. Let's see, who was playing?
Well, Orville was in the band, maybe?
No, Orville wasn't in that band.
He wasn't in the band.
That was a guitar player named Barney Perry, the guy that wrote Walking in Rhythm.
Oh, yeah, he was a nasty dude, yeah.
Yeah. It was him and me and Joe Chambers in that band for a while until Bird let him go, or he decided to leave. And that's when we put the call out to Keith. And then let's see.
Was Ray Armando in the band, by the way, the percussionist? Or
Yeah, he was in some of the live stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Ray Armando was in the band at that time. Because I left because they were going to go to Switzerland and do the Montreux Jazz Festival. And I had decided that I wanted to practice all summer on upright because I had to play for the faculty coming up that fall. So I said, okay, guys, well, I'm going to practice all summer. And that's when Ray Armando came in and cut some of the first album.
That's interesting because you know what's funny is that what's really interesting, I guess, because we're talking like 73 here.
Yeah.
Montreux, I don't know if you know this or not, but I mean, they didn't reissue it. They just issued for the first time ever the show that Joe Hall decided to stay in Woodshed. Probably it was a good idea. But you decided to stay, and my dear uncle, one of my earliest supporters on my program, Henry the Skipper Franklin, played bass, but that should have been you on there.
Yeah, and it turned out to be Williams. Dave Williams played, and actually, I don't think he went to Montreux.
No, it was the Skipper Henry Franklin. I have the record right here. Yeah, it was I mean, I'm always curious about why. I'm like, where was Joe? But that you decided to stay home that summer.
Yeah, I decided to practice that summer, and so after they came. Bird brought the band back after Montreux to I think it was a club in D.C. I can't remember what the name. It's probably not there anymore. And I went down to see them, and they asked me to come back, and that was right before the semester started, and so I said, cool. And so I was back in, and let's see what I do. I cut some more. I went back to the record company, which was Fantasy Records back in California.
Right.
And cut the rest of the record. I had to redo, what did I redo? I Like to Party. Do It Fluid.
You had to redo that bass line.
Yeah, it was a weird thing because it was no.
Well, that's like my favorite. I mean, you did a heck of a job because that bass line is just on fire.
And the funny thing was, the beginning of it, there was no click track. It was just hand claps that weren't really that great, and I had to figure out a way to play the intro and get it in meter with everybody else.
I think that you just. I'm just so. I'm sorry, but like that freaking click track is such a crutch. I'm like this. That honestly, Joe, because you know what? Somehow, even though that was not easy, your own individual sound came out because of that.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds like you.
We really hated the click track because it was a big deal when it came to doing that movie soundtrack.
Cornbread Earl and Me.
Yeah, the click tracks was what was the thing back then for most overdub or any kind of rhythm section that had to deal with that or orchestra had to deal with later. But when they played, they had the whole rhythm section to play too, and all we had was each other and that mono type click track, which was really because there was all it did was do quarter notes. You couldn't feel. You had to really feel the sub beat yourself.
Everyone had to have their own inner time feel. That's the point. That's right. That to me was pre click. I mean,
Pre-drum machine.
Well, yeah, pre-drum machine. But it's so funny because everybody had to not just balance themselves, but they had to have their own inner time feel. And like, I don't know, man, like it got to this point where I was talking to Keith about it, where before 1976, a lot of the engineers and producers would say that was the year when a template came out about how to record a record. Prior to that, there was no writing about it. It hadn't been codified. There was no template for it. And so you kind of just, and there, I mean, say what you will, but, you know, I mean, I just feel like that those first couple of Blackbyrds records, the first one in particular, I mean, your own sound came out because you weren't relying on, you know, machines to dictate the time. That to me was like, I don't know, there was no problem. In my mind, like the subtleties of tempo shifting and those kinds of things is absolutely essential in music. And, you know, we've gotten very far away from that now in so many ways, you know?
Yeah, quite far, yeah. Because for me, I'm always, when it comes to live performances, I'm always on the side of the hi-hat of Keith.
Exactly.
I gotta have those subdivisions, especially live.
This is that I just love that you said that because talk about why you need that hi-hat.
Well, you know, the hi-hat gives you the 8th and 16th notes, and everything else as far as the groove goes is going to follow that. So that's what those are the things that keep drummers in time for themselves, is their hi-hat movement. And, you know, it just makes it much easier to groove when I can hear all the facets of what the drummer's doing. And everything else will fall in place after that.
Talk a little bit about, because you're playing a bunch of not new tunes, they're old tunes, but you never played them live before. Right. So how do you get in sync with will that be something that you might just work out on the fly on the bandstand?
Most of the time well, Keith is the kind of drummer, because he comes from a jazz background when he was growing up. And so even though back then time was still, it was still most important, you know, because we were listening to, you know, Jack DeJohnette and Tony Williams. And Tony Williams really stretched out the simple things, the time things, and the solo things across the time.
Oh, totally. Unbelievable.
So that gave us a new way of thinking. And because he was a kid at the time, too. So when we first heard him playing with Miles, and we said, dang, how old is this guy? He's 37? No, he's 19. He's 17. I said, holy crap, here we go.
But I mean, like some of these tunes, like you could, you know, Keith has never been, you know, none of you guys are like, to me, rehearsal can be kind of a dirty word after a while. So you're not going to like overwork these tunes in the rehearsal room. Do you think that some of this stuff, just being a pro, I mean, some of these old new tunes, do you think that you guys are, I mean, maybe you'll work on it in sound check, but ultimately, like on the tour, you might just kind of work some stuff out on the bandstand?
Yeah, a lot of times. Because I'm trying to think, what is that thing that Miles said? You know, not being boring or play like you're practicing on stage.
Right, exactly.
In other words, don't play what you know all the damn time.
Stop playing what you know. That's the greatest line ever. Yeah.
Exactly. So even though we're playing like, you know, we've been playing these tunes for a while, I try to play stuff differently within it and take chances with certain things, and you know, just try to make it newer, so it's not the same thing. And luckily, Kill goes the same way. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, everything builds from the bottom up, from the drums up. You know, everybody else is floating on top. As long as they're playing their parts, it's fine. But for Keith and myself, we've got to be on the same page, and we always are somehow, even if we're trying something new. And it's crazy sometimes we'll hit accents at the same time without even thinking about it. And
yeah, that's the telepathy and the magic of after playing for so long together, you know?
Yeah. So it's, that's always been an amazing thing to me. But, yeah.
Who was who was playing sax when you were in the septet?
Oh, yeah, Alan Barnes.
Alan Barnes.
Alan Barnes.
I was gonna say, like,
from Detroit.
I mean that, because there were times where I would hear him play, and it was like, I just remember I was wondering if and again, you were playing with Donald Byrd, who is definitely an original master of the music, but I just wonder about how much, Train died in '67. You listen to a lot of the music from the early '70s, and pretty much everybody's paying tribute in their own way to John Coltrane.
Oh yeah.
And I just wonder, like, if you could talk about how the Blackbyrds, because when it really comes down to it, like, I mean, it's cool. It's great that these hip hop guys are sampling your beats, and that's cool. I mean, it's groove. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's, to me, it's Elvin and it's Jimmy Garrison and and it's Train and it's playing spiritual music and that I just kind of wanted you to talk about how much you guys were playing, like how much Donald reminded you that you were part of this lineage that was to be taken very seriously, but not, let's not try to be uptight about it, but let's remember this is sacred music.
Right. Well, that's why he was so hard on us all the time.
Right.
Why he was a taskmaster, because that lineage had to continue, because most of the popular world, most of the stuff that you heard at the time was leaning away from that, and so he wanted to make sure that we would carry on somehow in what we were doing at the time, but have that respect for where everything came from,
right,
and what it would take to keep jazz alive, even though we're playing, stuff that people are dancing to and that kind of thing. But still, even inside that, we really have to do things that still bring you back to jazz.
I mean, it's so subtle, but and again, jazz. What's interesting is with the Blackbyrds. I mean, literally going through the '70s, that was really the last decade, if that jazz was maybe considered a popular music. After that, by the 1980s, it was just went out the window. By the way, I had this. I don't know if it was a dream or if it was just a flash. Did you ever get a chance to play or record with Gil Scott-Heron?
No, I did not. I think Keith played with him.
Did Keith play? I'm just wondering about, like, I'm like, Joe. Joe Hall there must have been a studio scene in D.C. And I'm just like, did you play any? Your discography is Blackbyrds only, and I'm like, there's just no way that someone as talented as you did not play jingles, commercials, or studio recordings. I just want to get on the record. Are you on other records outside of the Blackbyrds?
Yeah. I recorded a couple of albums with a fantastic organist named Hilton Felton.
How do you spell his last name?
Felton.
Hilton Felton. Dude, where are you going right now? This is way off the grid, dude.
Exactly. This guy, he was a Jimmy Smith type character.
He was kicking pedals very hard.
Pedals, left hand, right hand. He did it all.
Oh.
And the only thing when I played with him, he just relaxed on the footwork.
I was going to say, because if you're playing bass, he probably wasn't kicking, and then he'd lay off the left-hand bass a little bit, I guess.
He would lay off the left-hand stuff unless there was some kind of, I don't think he did too many foot things. There's just some accent stuff that was, more pedal type stuff, and, but most of it, myself and Wolf was playing bass. I was playing bass, Wolf played guitar. And he was on organ, and I think there was a vocalist. And we played this little club in D.C. called Jackie Lee's Lounge.
Oh, man.
And it was one of the best things I ever did in my life.
That is the greatest story I've ever heard. Wait, but you never got in the studio with him?
Yeah, we did. We did a couple of albums with him.
Are you kidding me, dude? What year? Yeah. So in the late 60s, or when was this?
That was during or right before
the septet.
Right before, it was probably during the septet, but right before it became the Blackbyrds.
Dude, that is I have never seen albums. There must have been very few pressings of those. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So did you have the singer on the albums, or was it just a straight instrumental soul jazz?
It was always the vocalist on the cuts, most of them, I think.
Right.
And we cut in this little studio up in Silver Spring. And he was, I don't know if you know of Andrew White.
Is he still with us, or is he passed?
No, he passed away a few years
ago. Andrew was really, if you wanted, he was a free jazz, he was really a true free jazz cat,
Yeah, he was, this guy, he was a serious genius. He was a guy that transcribed all of John Coltrane's solos and wrote them out and put them in a book.
That is monumental.
And so I got to play with him a couple of times. And actually, I was with Keith and Kevin, too, because we played a couple of concerts.
Well, no, Keith told me that those were concerts that sent him into the intergalactic. He'd never been in that cosmic place before.
Right. Andrew was just, I don't know, you'd have to hear him to believe it.
Because I know that he did some live recordings. Were you on those too? Did you record with him?
No. The live recordings were mostly with Keith, Kevin, and a bassist named Marshall Keys, and another bassist. What's his name? I can see his face plain as day. And they played they did the clubs. On one main club was two of them, Top of the Foolery and One Step Down in D.C.
One Step Down. That's right.
Yeah, and Keith and Kevin recorded. They did this thing where they played for like 24 hours straight.
That's what it was. Dude, it kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Now this, just put me there, dude. Anybody that was in attendance at that show was fundamentally changed for life after that.
Oh yeah, they had to be.
Yeah. They had. That was the best part about that period of music, because I don't think I'd be hip enough to even know where this stuff was going down. To be honest with you, maybe I would. I hope as a journalist I would. But if I had a chance to see like 4 sets of Mingus or Train, and to stumble home after that and be like, to try to put it back together. My consciousness would be just wide open. Even Bird, of course,
Oh yeah.
Why do you think, just from your own point of view, why fundamentally did society and the music racket move away from burning spiritual improvisational music to music made for pacification? Some people would call it smooth jazz. Why did that? Why was there? Why did that happen? It was just because that's how people's ears changed. It's so demoralizing for me, to hear and to see guys like, I don't know, there was a guy named John Clemmer, great horn player, who was playing with all the cats in the early 70s and blowing to the moon. And then by the mid 70s, someone's like, oh, you want to make a buck? Play some Velveeta,
Yeah. Well, you actually called it when you said racket.
The racket, yeah.
That's what all they were interested in is where's the money coming from?
That's right.
And if we can change things and make more money and publicize it in a way that allows us to make more money, that's all they cared about. And that relegated everybody else. So guys who were playing jazz into the small clubs, no arenas, no big shows. Miles was still on pretty big shows back then.
I mean, Miles was. It was interesting to. I found this compilation record by released on Columbia, and it was like, the Rock album. It was called Rock, and it had like Paul Revere and the Raiders, and it had like Blood, Sweat and Tears, Pacific Gas and Electric, and then all of a sudden there's Miles. I'm like, Miles figured out how to cross over, and commercialize it, and Freddie Hubbard was beyond genius as well. Did Bird, but Freddie was always a little bit, he wanted the dough too. He saw Miles making the dough. Was Bird really just in it for the creation itself, and he knew he had enough to sing for his supper, or was he also looking for? I don't want to say looking. I remember Gregorico from Sly Stone, that drummer who played the press roll that you were looking for Kilgore with. He said that because he joined Weather Report for a hot minute, and Wayne Shorter would be chanting in his room all day. And one day Greg was like, he's like, why are you in there all day, man? He's like, I'm chanting for that big payday, man. Like hoping it comes. And even though they were creating original music, was Bird pretty satisfied, or was he like Freddie? He wanted some dough.
Well, it was probably a combination, because Bird, that first big commercial, well, actually he kind of broke through with
Blackbyrds,
Cristo Redentor.
Cristo Redentor. Yeah, oh, that's so fat. That made a radio splash or whatever. That made that. Yeah.
And that made a big splash, and that probably turned a light on in him.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, he did one. What was the one called? He did an album after that also became a good commercial hit, and for the time for jazz. And then,
I think it was called. It's funny because he did a tune called Blackbird with like David T. Walker and Harvey Mason and those cats. That was a crossover album. That was maybe the same year as your first album came out.
Yeah, it could have been. I can't remember, but yeah. And then just so it happened that two brothers that went to Howard, the Marzell brothers.
Oh yeah.
They constructed that for another trumpet player, the one that got killed.
Oh, Lee Morgan.
That was supposed to be his album. And Lee Morgan died, and the brother said, "Well, hey, Birds, we know Bird."
Let's get Bird. I cannot. But you're absolutely right. Of course, you're right. That's unbelievable. They were doing it for Lee, man.
Right.
Wow.
And then when Bird got into it, because Bird was he was an all-around great musician, but he's one of the most fantastic soloists as far as knowing what to play and what not to play.
Absolutely.
And when to do either. And so he made that album go somewhere else, I think, than it would have gone before. And the Meisner brothers just constructed because they had already cut the tracks.
Absolutely. I remember I interviewed Harvey Mason. I didn't realize it at the time, but all the rhythm set, all the stuff had been cut, All
the stuff had been cut. I don't know if they had already done the
vocal. Yeah, I'm not sure about the female vocals, but all the rhythm tracks was cut, yeah.
All the rhythm section stuff was cut. Everything was ready to go. And Bird just had to go in and do his thing. And he did some vocals on a couple of things here and there. And
he did that tune Flight Time.
Yeah, Flight Time was I think that was off of the first album, and everything that came from that album turned out to be a big commercial smash for the first time. Jazz was being played, or at least somebody was a jazz giant was played on regular radio. And I didn't even, back then, I guess I wasn't really enamored with listening to radio much because I was.
You listen to Vine, yeah.
I was too involved in trying to get my stuff together. But, and then that became a big hit. And that first album, Blackbird.
I'm just going to read through the tracks were Mr. Thomas, Where Are We Going, Sky High, Slop Jar Blues, Love So Far Away, Flight Time, and Blackbird. That was the album that set it off.
That's it. Yeah. And all that stuff and that took off, and then
rest is. I mean, then you guys must have. Did you then you were later that year? You were out at Fantasy Records. It's basically the same year.
Yeah, because what year did that come out?
That came out 73, but again, probably in the. Who knows when he went out and just blew the solos, because they probably had that in the can in 70. I think Lee Morgan was killed in 72. I'm not exactly sure about that.
Yeah, I think he was. And that's when they decided to go with Bird, and then that, so I
just want to be clear, though. He got commercial. Yeah. He got, for the first time, real commercial relevance, but had the septet already been playing, or after that he was galvanized to be like, yo, let's do something way outside the box and start doing the septet?
Yeah, because I transferred to Howard graduated in the early summer of 71, went to University of Maryland until the first of the year, and I transferred to Howard. That would have been 72. And a few months after that, I went out with Bird on the septet. And then, I can't remember what month that album came out, though.
Well, it doesn't even matter. The point is, he could have maybe recorded the Blackbird album came out in 73, but maybe that was already done. But it was all sort of in that.
It was all that general time period. Him going out and cutting the tracks for those, what was it, 7 tunes?
Absolutely, 7 tunes, and they were already done. That's right.
He probably could have done that in a day or two.
Yeah, no, and he had his own plane. He was flying around with Roger Glenn in that plane,
Yeah. So that was done pretty quickly, and then he came back, and we were doing the septet still. And next thing you know, came the first album in the early.
No, 73 was at least the release. Orrin Keep was.
Yeah. So we were in the studio earlier that year, but in California, so it was like spring, late summer over there.
And you never on those albums. You guys laid down the rhythm tracks, but you didn't hear the final product till it actually came out on the records. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. We never heard anything till it was out.
Right.
And we heard some stuff on the radio. We said, what?
Dude, what was that? Seriously? I mean, can you talk about pride or, just sort of, to me, after I've done 2,000 interviews. I got my 5th book coming out. Certain times you finish interviews or you talk to Donald Harrison and you actually really stretch him out for a while and you're like, oh, I found my purpose in life. Did you feel like at that time collectively, that was a legacy moment for you guys when you heard that on the radio?
Yeah, that was one of those things that, first of all, you can't believe, wait a minute, is that us?
Is that me playing bass? You were in some Chrysler's 59, listening to some radio. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, so, it's like you said, it was unbelievable at the time because I couldn't, you couldn't conceive of actually hearing your stuff coming back on the radio. So that was weird, but, we said, cool, maybe we can do something with this.
One final question for you, Brother Joe. I think I already know the answer to it, but I just know that the same year that you were at Howard and decided to shed really hard on the bass fiddle for the fall semester, Abel Boreal, he Berkeley did not have an accredited degree for the electric bass, and I would assume Howard was you had to get a degree in upright. Is that right?
Oh yeah. That was your only avenue for any kind of for instrumental features. It had to be acoustic only.
Well, talk about how just in summation. Did you ever wind up playing any bass fiddle on Blackbyrds gigs, maybe plugged into a little amp, or was it always the electric? And ultimately, How grateful are you that you had a Woodshed, that upright bass? I mean, yeah, you didn't make it on that album that was just released, but in some ways that was probably the best thing you could have done, was stay and just get in the shed.
Yeah, I think so. That was the best thing for me at the time, and so that was fantastic, and I was willing to do that because my main thing at the time was staying in school and learning what I could learn, and so that was great, and I got to play upright on quite a number of gigs, with like Gary Bartz and Andrew White and stuff like that. So
you still play it today too?
Yeah, not as much today. Actually, I got a bass here. I got to get.
Yeah, no, because you got to get those you got to get some blisters bleeding again. You got to get the calluses going again. Come on.
Oh yeah, you got to shed the blood.
You got to shed the blood, man. Hey, man,
I got a bass here. I got a bass here. I got to get to a bass doctor to get it repaired. But
get it over to the doctor, man. Give it some love, man. Because I'll tell you, I don't know. That's where. I mean, but don't get me wrong. You're good. You're good at both. I just wanted to ask you. Do you think you could hook me up with Orville?
I think so. All
right. Well, just I'll just maybe reach out to him or ask him if it's cool I connect with him. I would I've interviewed Kevin, Joe Chambers twice. I interviewed Keith multiple times. Now you. So it would be great to get to him if he's up for it.
Yeah, I'll inquire to see if he's up for it.
Yeah, just let him know it'd be a great hang, man. And thank you, dude. It's so great. I'm so honored to connect with you, man. I'll get this up later. When is the tour starting, by the way?
Okay, so we start because this is our 50th year.
Yeah,
this is the 50-year anniversary. So we're starting. We have we're doing a thing in New York but that's like in. I mean, I can't think of what the occasion is, but it's not the whole band. It's just a few of us going to go up there and do that thing for an hour in New York. But after that, on the 7th of July, we start out at the downtown historic theater. I wish I could get to my phone. I have all the dates on it. But actually, you can get that stuff off of blackbirdmusic.com.
That's what I was just looking at. Are you doing Are you coming to the Southwest at all?
We'd like to. We were hoping to get out that way. Like Arizona.
Yeah, that's well. I'm based out of Tucson. I'm like, I got to freak it. I want to do it fluid, man.
Yeah, that would be cool. We'd love to get out there. We know some guys that put on shows and stuff that are hooked up in Arizona. We might be able to get out there sooner than we pretty soon. Hopefully this summer.
Blackbirdmusic.com is where people can go to find the tour. And is 50th anniversary, is it going to run through the whole calendar year, or is we just talking summer tour at this point?
Well, at this point, we're starting off summer doing the theater downtown. What's the famous one? I don't know if you're looking at the list. It's the first one, July 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to a theater club in Richmond. We're doing a jazz festival in Connecticut. Another thing in, was it Detroit? Or
it's frustrating because I'm looking for the tour and I can't find it. But I'm going to
keep going. Keep going down to the bottom of the page. There should be a bunch of them there together in a red background.
Yeah, hold on a second here. Oh, yeah, here we go. So the legendary Billy Hart used to go see James Brown at the Howard Theater.
Right.
July 7th, July 8th, the Tin Pan in Richmond. Right. City Winery in Philly, the Black Music Festival in Pittsburgh. Right. Lake Arbor Jazz Fest in, I guess, Maryland. A lot of jazz fest. That's great. That's good. And we need to get you guys. I mean, I connected pretty hard with Keith, but it would just be great to meet you guys in person. I'd love to get you out to the Southwest at some point.
Yeah, we'd love to get out there. We haven't been out there in a while.
Joe, man, much love to you, man, and we'll stay in touch. Talk to you soon.
Sure will, brother. You take care of yourself.
All right, be cool, man.
All right, man.
Later.